Back again.
We are.
Another part 2.
We can't handle more than an hour. It just gets...
We need a break.
Yeah. People don't like it. So after about an hour, they just forget. And then you've got a couple of days in between. We're like, hey, welcome back, boys. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm over disliking them from last time. Anyway, back with Troy Thornton. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Missed that. My timing was terrible last time. At least I got it right without the button this time. So we finished up with basically your circle of friends. If they're crappy, don't hang out with them. Stay home.
Stay home.
Get a new friend on YouTube. Was the general gist.
Pretty good message, yeah. We're talking about in the break. That's something you don't really hear is just, if you're not going to do something productive, stay home instead. It's a pretty good way to look at it because we get led out to do things that we, probably shouldn't. One more night out. And
it's something, if you're going to go out and you're not going to feel good the next day, you probably made the wrong choice. And a lot of the time people regret, how many times like, I'm hungover.
I was about to say that.
I don't feel the best. I don't feel the best today. It's like, okay.
Never drinking again.
Did you really make the right decision, the night before? Probably not. And especially if that decision is going to be a consequence to your goals and to your vision. It's like you're not doing what you need to do to stack the deck and to build momentum.
And you might get away with it early on in your 20s, but then it gets harder and harder to back it up.
Yeah. Oh, look, the goals are different when you're in your 20s perhaps. So some people are like, all right, my goal is to have as much fun as possible. Then you're probably succeeding, But then if you want to do other things, you've got to reprioritize what your goals are and your actions need to reflect, your vision, your goal. If you're not backing up what you need to do in terms of putting your work in, going to the gym, working on your business, like studying, if that's going to be affected by going out and hitting the piss, then, you're just letting yourself down.
It is a risk analysis as well, though. Like you go out, like I wouldn't have met you if we weren't going out in Thailand. I wouldn't have met you. So there's not. I mean, look, to be fair, it did cost me the next day quite substantially.
I will say the formalities of that though, it was $1.
Yeah, I know that's true.
And you've not said never. You've said don't routinely do it. There's always there's some times where you go out and you do things like
absolutely. I think
celebrations and
special occasions. You got birthdays. You've got a wedding. There's different occasions where you might go out. You might be celebrating a milestone. There's a lot of different things that people hit goals and they haven't gone out for 6 months or whatever it might be. They're cool. Go out every now and then. Enjoy yourself. But then it's also like do something that is not going to be a consequence to your goals. Like drink in moderation. If you enjoy drinking, have a social one. Just don't get don't be turning into Frank the Tank like Mr. Thailand over here.
I've never been to Thailand. 41 years of age. And this is the first time I met Troy. We went out and then all the other boys went home. And like Troy owed me nothing. He could have left me there to lose a kidney. But
was Thailand like your spirit city?
Oh, no, I don't think I mean, Troy's saying let's go back, but I don't know that I need to ever go back there again. But there comes a point like where you reassess your life choices. And mine was at 41 years of age, sitting on a plastic chair on a beach with about five boxes of fireworks going off next to me while Troy's screaming out the Goldberg theme song. And yeah. There were some mistakes made. But again, with moderation, I was in a far worse position than Troy was. And the next day, he woke up and went back to work. I think I was in bed for a while and missed probably about the first 7 hours of whatever it was everybody else was doing that I wasn't doing. So you can still go out and have fun. You just don't need to write yourself off like certain people.
Traveling's actually quite funny for that too, because a lot of people say, oh, there wasn't that much culture there. It's like, no, you just wrote yourself off every evening. Some of us were going out and doing things around the city during the day, and like you miss half of it if you're just constantly writing yourself off every night.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's if you go on a holiday, you're going to figure out what it's for. Like if you really want to let your hair down because you're pretty structured, back in Australia, then sure, like do what you need to do. And then it's just sometimes you need that downtime as well just to go, all right, that's not for me. I made those decisions. I probably won't repeat it again. Don't want to be Frank the Tank. Frank the Tank is retired. And then, you know what? The next holiday is going to be a little bit more wholesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
True? Maybe.
You'll strike through the quad again.
Frank the Tank goes to Phuket. Number 2.
Yeah. Bangkok has him now.
Due to following that guideline and having some sort of discipline and your training, so you ended up working for the Arnold exhibitions. Was that a bit of a dream job, like sort of ending up there and then working on their IT side and learning?
Yeah, I thought, like, first of all, it's like, this is an amazing opportunity. So when I did get that job, I was like, wow, like this is everything that I want right now. Like I wasn't thinking that in that moment, I wasn't thinking that there was something else that I wanted to do. So I was just very grateful for that opportunity and I really enjoyed it. And then as you're in a new role, it's very stimulating. There's a lot to learn. And there was so much to learn about like the expo, because essentially it's event planning on steroids really, because it's such a huge event. It's at the Melbourne Convention Centre. I think the largest one that we put on, it might have been 16 bays, which is huge. That's a really big amount of floor space. Like there's not a lot of other expos that go on that have that amount of floor space, and to sell that as well. So it wasn't just the exhibitors, there was also a bunch of sports that were there as well. So it's really cool. So there was a lot of things that were involved in the expo that was really fun and fascinating, like different sports, the amateur sports as well as the professional side of things. So yeah, I was very happy and content with what I was doing. And then as you obviously grow and evolve into the job, you're like, okay, what do I do from here? What's next? And that's my personality as well. It's like, I want to learn as much as I can about whatever I'm doing. And then I'm thinking, okay, is it possible that I can do something else? And then, you want to level up. And I think it's human nature to want to grow as well. I think it's hard to stay in the same place and not want more. I mean, that's just my personality.
So do you see working with Tony as like an apprenticeship almost? Like how long did you do with Tony?
I was there for a while. So, I mean, I definitely I seen it as an apprenticeship for sure, because that opportunity gave me, I seen so much, I learned so much about like sales, marketing, like event planning. I went from having no event experience to like, let's say for example, if you said, Troy, could you put on a massive expo at the convention center? Like I'd be like, yeah, easy, done, no problem. I know exactly how to start the process. Whereas having not gone through that experience, I would have no idea. I'd be like, what? Like what would be involved? I wouldn't know where to start. But now it's like, no, I got you. Let's do that. So I definitely seen it as an apprenticeship. That's why I said to you before, if I had my time again, would I go do marketing? No. I would straight away get a job. It doesn't matter what job. Just learn about customer service, learn about sales, get that experience in communicating and reporting to a manager and seeing what their job responsibilities are like, and just getting in the workforce, because you never know where you're going to end up. And that opportunity can then create a desire elsewhere and go, you know what, maybe it's possible that I can look at doing X, Y, Z. But if you weren't working in that workplace, you wouldn't have had that, like that sort of that catalyst to think about, is there something more? So for me, it was definitely a catalyst, and I really enjoyed it because I did learn a lot, and it was a lot of fun as well. I loved working at the Arnold office.
So when you finished up there, is that when you started your own stuff, or did you do something else in between?
So it was interesting because at the trail end of that, I was thinking to myself, I want to do something, I just don't know what it is. And then the whole Les Brown thing came in. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stop working. I saved up enough money where I was comfortable to just chill for a bit. I actually didn't work for about a year and a half, or close to a year and a half. And all I did was read books, study, read, review, and thinking about doing different ventures. I think I still had, at that time as well, I was still working with a few different clients, but again, I wasn't really charging them, or I might have started charging a couple people because a lot of the time I was doing it for free just because I enjoyed prepping people. And eventually it clicked where I was like, all right, now I need to turn the gas on and start making an income, like a proper full-time income, which was good. But that downtime gave me all the time that I needed to study. Like all I did was read all day long, all night. And I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this time and just go out in the piss or something like that. I was training and I was studying. So it was, that in itself was probably my discovery phase of, figuring out what I wanted to do as well as preparing for that opportunity. So a lot of the, mindset and self-development books out there, I've read probably everyone's top 10 of everything, I would say even top 20, 30. So I've gone through that process, and there's lessons in every book, but a lot of the books are actually very, very much the same. They're just articulating the same message in a different way. So it's repetition for sure.
Was that, no doubt a lot of that was valuable, but do you wish you started 6 months in or got going earlier, or was all of that critical to getting education in starting out for yourself?
I think that the process, look, everyone's always going to say, yeah, it would be great to start earlier, but I think that I needed to go through this process to really do it in this way, that how it's turned out, because if I started this early, I don't know. It's hard to say, because would I have had the same clients if I started early? Would I have popped off? Would I have had as much anticipation? Because when I said, hey, I'm going full time, this is what I want to do. And I announced it on social media. Because I was saying no and I was turning down clients, it then created a bit of an influx because there were a lot of people that wanted to work with me as a coach, but I was just saying, no, I'm just doing this for fun. I don't want to, do this full time. And I was very selective with who I was working with. So because of that, it created a demand as well. So I did that unintentionally, by the way. It was just something that happened because I was saying, no, I don't want to do that. I'm happy to work with, I was working with maybe 5 to 10 clients at a time, which is not a lot at all. But I was happy to do that because it was fun for me. But I didn't want to, and I didn't see it as a full-time job at the time.
You created some credibility and, as you say, some demand by doing it that way. Did you feel any pressure to make the leap and start charging people, or was it quite natural when you did do it?
No, it was quite natural. I mean, if I was working with people for free, I kept it. I wasn't like, hey, I'm about to charge now. It's like if I'm working with you because I'm helping you, I generally like helping you. All of a sudden, that's not going to change. So the ladies that I was helping for free, I kept them that way, and I had a good relationship with them. And I think a lot of those ladies as well were good for me because they also believed in my ability to get the job done. So, hey, listen, like I'm clearly getting good results here, but you could do something really good. There's a gap in the market, yada, yada. So all these people are saying the same thing to me. Like, dude, you can take this full time and you can do really good. Like what's stopping you? And I was like, no. And then obviously we had that catalyst, which was my friend who was making a decent amount of money. And I was like, oh, really? You're making this amount of money? I need to get involved in this. This is a hobby of mine. I'm enjoying coaching, but why aren't I doing this? Okay, I've got to take it seriously.
And so you were already doing it before you realized they were making good money, and then it just sort of confirmed that could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because the online space, to me, a lot of coaches back then were not necessarily all online, and that friend of mine was all online. So to my understanding, the coaches out there that were doing really well or had a decent amount of clients, I don't think there was a coach out there that had a big amount of clients, especially in Australia. And the ones that did go through, like if you wanted to find a bodybuilding coach or bikini coach or whatever it might be, it wasn't necessarily split up into a niche. I think I was the first one to specifically go down that road. But let's say a bodybuilding coach or a bodybuilding prep coach, male or female, you would go to a gym. It would be a personal trainer. It wouldn't be someone online that specifically does online coaching only. It was, you need to go to this bodybuilding gym to find a bodybuilding PT who will take you to the stage. So it was, the whole online concept was undiscovered at that point in time. But then when I seen my friend do it and did it really successfully, I was like, all right, I need to take action here.
And did you start off with working with females? Like how did you get into the whole bikini style rather than jacked up dudes?
Yeah. So I actually started prepping dudes to begin with. And that was when I was in the gym as a personal trainer, etc. So exactly what I mentioned before, you're a personal trainer. People will come to you because you've competed before. And because I competed, I had that credibility of, this guy get really shredded and get in shape. And the no-nonsense attitude people liked. So I did have some guys come to me for prep, and I was only prepping dudes. And then I had my first female who happened to be a figure competitor, and she was an older lady and she did really good. I was like, wow, like these people are really disciplined. Like the older girl, best ever to train an older lady because they're just so disciplined. They don't complain. Best client ever. And they just get the job done. They just get in condition, and you're just listening to why you're getting results so easily.
Maybe she can train Al.
It's crazy. It's so so it was that simple. But now, what was the original question?
How did you go from guys to get into bikini and stuff? And why did you go there instead of staying like Lee Haney and all those other people area? Yeah.
So I had a partner at the time, and she was like, hey, like I'm curious, I'm interested in doing a bikini competition. It's like, would you prep me? And I was like, okay, sure. But I didn't really care about bikini at the time because I was so bodybuilding focused. So I had to learn about the criteria and figure out, how it's judged, what they like, etc. Because I was really invested in her journey, I became sort of a student of the sport, of really studying and analyzing bikini as a criteria. And because we went through the process of her competing, I was very invested, and I was like, I started caring about bikini because of her. Outside of that, I couldn't give two shits about bikini. I was like, meh, I liked seeing, the bodybuilders on stage because it's more fun. I want
to see 300-pound jack dudes.
I want to see jack dudes. I don't care about bikini.
I mean, in the women's category, what technically differentiates bikini from bodybuilding and the other categories?
So you're talking about something that's a lot more mainstream, like first of all, whereas bodybuilding's, heavily focused on muscle and condition, whereas bikini is definitely more aesthetic based in terms of femininity. You don't need to be overly muscular. You don't have to be stringy and have that really dieted down muscle.
Oh, they're still shredded though. Bikini's getting a lot more shredded.
Back then as well, now it's really progressive sport. They're really pushing towards conditioning, but back then it was a bit more softer and feminine looking. So it was more about, yes, top to bottom balance, having the aesthetics. It was a specific look in terms of the amount of body fat that you would need to diet down to be rewarded, because they wanted, a lady to be, if you're winning bikini, you need to have top to bottom balance, good glutes, nice face, really good presentation, but not overly conditioned, the right amount of body fat. But for me, understanding what that look was, the criteria, like what is the right amount of body fat? What is the right amount of muscle? These things were subjective, and that's part of the process of learning. And that's what I learned. I tried to learn that as quickly as possible because my partner was competing in it. So that was the major challenge in, if you see bodybuilding, if you go to a bodybuilding comp and you see the dudes on stage, it's like the biggest, hardest dude's going to win. So it's like, yep, that guy, like he's just jacked and he's lean, crazy. Whereas bikini, it's like, all right, there's the girl over there, she's a bit leaner, but this one looks a bit more feminine, has more body fat. Is it condition or is it femininity? It's like, oh, hold on, actually, it's that, because that's the look, that's the criteria. So it was just understanding what that is, and it took a little while, but now for me, it's pretty easy to see that. But it's definitely more about, if you're going to enter into a bodybuilding comp, you need to know what the criteria is for the category that you're competing in. So bikini is definitely subjective.
You find that you get you'll get women who turn up and you're like, you're probably closer to physique than you are to bikini, and vice versa. Do you get them to change?
There's ladies that do have potential to compete in other categories, but it's like if a coach really is analyzing, I'm getting your check-ins every week, I see your potential, like you would know that, oh, hold on, you're getting jacked, lady. But they don't get jacked overnight unless the coach is actually really stupid and they're like, did you slip on a banana pill? Like, have you had your goggles on the whole time? It is so obvious that this chick is not bikini. Like, what are you doing? But some coaches are like that. They don't have that awareness, or they don't analyze things. But you just got to be honest with the clients and give them feedback as well. It's like, if your goal is to train and to compete and win a bikini contest, you must train for the criteria that you're competing in. It's that simple, right? Whereas if you're trying to be a physique athlete, you obviously need to have more muscle. You've got to have a higher level of condition. So the game plan and the training needed to achieve that level of condition to be rewarded is completely different.
It's sort of getting slightly off, but it's still under the coaching thing. I've seen a couple of your videos and stuff where you talk about how other trainers might be pushing ladies towards like certain assistance and stuff. And I mean, every action you take comes with some sort of repercussion, but is it a lot more like, do you have women asking you what stuff they should take and you just go, you're not going to be feminine anymore?
Well, there is, because if you establish yourself as an authority, you do get these questions, and I welcome these questions as well, because it's about educating ladies in terms of, if they are going to go down the performance enhancement road, they need to understand what the consequences are, whether they're modest or whether it could be significant. And whether something is modest or very minor will depend on the compound that they're potentially looking at using. And some compounds are ridiculous. It's like, you would not take that unless you wanted to F yourself up.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to ruin your femininity, it's just like, but for some reason, I think ladies go down that road and make really poor decisions and put too much trust in their coach. And then that's when these ladies get these side effects. And it's just like, how is it possible that you've gone to this coach and you've heard what they've said? I sort of understand why you would trust, because you need to trust your coach, but you need to also do your own independent research and have that awareness and go, that sounds a bit aggressive. And then when you start getting side effects, you don't continue, you need to stop. But for whatever reason, the level of awareness is not there. Perhaps their circle of influence as well. Maybe, she has a best friend and, I think her voice is starting to change, but I better not, I don't want to have that hard conversation with her. It's like, you're now making this about you. Like your best buddy, her voice is changing and you don't have the courage to tell her. Like, think
She's
of that
got
for
a beard.
second.
You don't want to say anything?
You don't have the courage to tell her. What about if you were her? You've now got to live with this masculine-like voice for the rest of your life. What's worse, having a conversation or being that individual? So it's just about having the right people around you that are honest as well. Because if I had a client that was doing something silly and I noticed that these things were happening, I would be like, hey, listen, you need to stop whatever you're doing. Like clearly you're not.
Yeah, like if you had any clients that do it without asking you, and then you can see it. You're
absolutely.
Like, where'd those delts come from?
Absolutely. There was one occasion where I had a client from Europe. She added in something that was really interesting, and she started having a little bit of like croakiness in her voice, and I could tell on her. She sent me audio recordings on WhatsApp, and I could tell, and I said, "Hey, listen, this is happening." And she's like, "Yeah, I know. It's because of XYZ." And I said, "Stop taking that." Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, if something's starting the process and you've added something in, it doesn't take a genius to work out that that is the problem. Like, we're talking off air about the diet side of things in terms of, like if you're out of shape and if you're having macros 3 times a week, a good way to start is probably to stop having that. Like, if you've added something in that could be perceived as bad, you probably want to remove that first. And obviously with her, she added something in because she wanted to get that little bit extra, performance enhancement, but went down a road and it cost her. Her voice started playing up, which is crazy.
So without knowing the sport too much, is that stuff tested for, or is this like the amateur side of it where that doesn't occur? Or
yeah, so there's tested federations and there's untested federations. So depending on the federation that you're competing in, where some ladies opt to compete in untested, but you also have natural competitors, and it's quite often the time you have natural athletes that compete in untested. That doesn't mean that everyone that participates in an untested federation is on enhancement, because that's not the case. I have a lot of ladies that I work with that, are natural athletes that just want to test themselves against high level competition, and they're aware of that. So it just depends on the organization.
I think there's a lot more serious repercussions for females jumping on it than men. Like, obviously men get on like crazy levels of tests and that sort of stuff, but like, I mean, females, like, what sort of risks are they? There's like, they can be sterile. There's all sorts of other hazards and stuff that come that are a lot more extreme. Like having a stronger beard and a stronger jawline is not the worst thing that like men get out of it. Whereas, like, what are the sort of biggest risks that women may not know about jumping on certain performance enhancers?
I think the first thing is definitely vocal cord damage. I mean, that's the most obvious thing, and that's
irreversible.
Yeah, irreversible. As soon as it starts, like there's almost like a beginning phase where if someone's taking something and they feel like almost they've got a sore throat, like, how when you're sick and you just you need to clear your throat. That's the warning sign. That generally starts happening before it doesn't. Like, you don't go, I've taken something as a female and you wake up the next day, my voice has changed. No, there's warning signs. It progressively starts. So if you have a warning sign, your throat's just a little bit sore, a little bit dry, stop.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing that you need to do. So there are warning signs. Like, that is obviously very obvious. Other side effects are like hair growth, for example, could be like facial hair, could be body hair. Most females, like, is that debatable? Like, how much is it?
And they can laser it and stuff,
Like clitoris enlargement, thinning of the hair, not just thinning of the hair, but receding of the hairline too. So ladies can...
Like male pattern baldness.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. Next thing you know, you've got a female that looks like John Howard.
Massive eyebrows. I've got that problem.
Can you imagine John Howard?
Yeah.
And Canberra, female Howard.
So if you had females out there at the moment that have a coach and the coach is like, hey, don't worry about it. You want to look your best, go with that. And it's like, oh, it's only temporary. Like, what would you suggest? They get a second opinion on a coach, or? Yeah,
I would say that your coach doesn't have your best interests in mind. They're probably looking at thinking, I'm completely outcome based and I'm not thinking about your health. So
like they'll help you win that competition, but at what cost?
And that's even debatable. Sometimes ladies do this extreme stuff, do get these side effects, and they don't even win. So is it really worth it? But even if you do win, so what? Like, then, like, you've got these side effects and like if your voice is, you've got vocal cord damage or your hair's thinning, it's like the comp's now done. Now what? Are you going to continue doing this for your next contest? Do you add more sides? You're just stacking the deck in that favor. So it comes down to a lack of education, and I suppose that ladies do place trust in the coach, which I do understand, but it's just about going, hold on a second, what are the side effects? Is it possible that I can get XYZ? If it is, okay, I'm not prepared to do that because I'd rather play the long game. And then if you really love competing and you really want to, have like you want to compete over the next 5 or 10 years, do it in a modest way. Like, if you're going to use performance enhancement, use a low dosage. Just be very conservative because you only have one body. And then what? Once you've competed, you're gonna retire and never go to a comp again. No one cares. No one remembers you in 5-10 years.
Yeah, even if you win.
Even if you win.
Yeah,
no one's gonna remember you. Like, people can't even remember who competed in the Miss Bikini Olympia probably 8 years ago. If I said 8 years ago exactly who won, people are going to listen to this and go, if even my clients are going to go, they'd have to Google it.
Yeah.
They can't remember it. And that's a Miss Olympia champion 8 years ago. Challenge anyone to know that off their heart.
It's funny, the only Miss Olympia contest I can remember is Dana Bailey.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you anybody else that's been in any of them. And I couldn't even tell you the dudes. I know Phil Heath won at some point. I couldn't tell you the last 6 years.
Yeah, exactly. And Dana Bailey's, like, I couldn't even tell you I know that she was the first physique Olympian champion.
Yep.
And she claimed natty. I mean, that was interesting. That's another story. But she's now not in the fitness industry, or at least in the competition space.
Yep.
So she's not,
But she's I think she's probably doing better than she would have been as a competitor.
100%.
And there's heaps of like people now, like Steph Fitmum and stuff. I don't know that she's ever competed, but everyone follows her and they're all mad for it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. She might have competed at the beginning of her journey, but certainly at the peak, she never competed and doesn't need to. It's like,
no.
Like at the end of the day, like you can, I suppose, look, you compete, everyone competes for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes in the quest for a competition or in the quest for winning a show, you forget, or people forget, the reason why you got in the gym in the first place, which is self-improvement, which is develop confidence or to develop a bit of self-esteem and to be proud of yourself and to also challenge. It's like, yes, I want to develop a physique. Yes, I want to be confident in how I look in my own skin. And maybe you want attention. Maybe you want a bit of validation, all the above. And we all have our own reasons. And maybe you need to go back to the default, which is, hey, I'm going to the gym to improve myself. You don't need to compete if, for validation, because the gym's always going to be there. You're always going to want to improve. So just keep going to the gym. You don't have to compete, especially at the consequence of your health. It's like you're pushing and using things that you probably wouldn't if you weren't interested in doing a contest. It's like, why would you do that? Just stick to the gym then. If you feel like competing is going to cross you over to the dark side and you're that competitive that you have to have that advantage and you think that everyone's using X, Y, Z and you've got to be that person, probably don't compete because you're going to get sucked into that stuff as well.
Yeah. So from coaching ladies, then you've got into online coaching and now you've started an app. How do you go about starting your own business and then starting an app, and how much work is that? And at which point did you think, like was it literally because your friend was doing it and you're like, if he can do it, I can do it? Or is that or did you at some point, like at which point did you go, I'm ready for this?
There were a number of factors. So the whole concept of going full time in terms of coaching was always there and it was always presented to me. And I did have a few people saying, oh, are you taking on more clients? Do you want to take on more clients? I'm like, no, I'm happy just doing this as a hobby. I enjoy it. I don't want to make it a job where I just have a disconnection from, because I was really feeling fulfilled helping competitors compete and not feeling obligated to do it, because I was accepting, just a small amount. I was happy doing that. But then, I do get a lot of feedback. Hey, you should you take on more clients. I've got a friend of mine that wants to work with you, but I know that you don't want any clients, So there was a lot of that going on. And then, the deciding factor for me was my friend who was making money, and he told me, he's like, I'm making X amount of money. And I was like, yo, I have just as much knowledge, if not more than you. I'm very proud of you, brother, but you've lit a fire up my ass now.
Are we starting internet beef? Or
Sorry?
You going to start internet beef? You want to throw it out there? Or
The number?
know who he is?
Oh, Adam Rochester. So Adam, do you know Adam Rochester?
Yeah, I see him at the gym all the time.
Yeah, Adam, he
I'll
told
have to get
me,
him on.
He told me how much he was making, and I thought, you bugger. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm like, really? Okay, how many clients have you got? I won't repeat the numbers.
Yeah.
How many clients have you got? And that was like ages ago. So now he's probably doing a lot better than then. But
well, I'll go speak to him when I see him at the gym next, and I'll get him on. Yeah, like, oh, Troy was throwing shit at you.
Yeah, he definitely got me going a bit because he encouraged me to do it.
Yeah,
he was actually very positive for it. That
he's
goes back to what we were saying
massive
before.
unit, though. I'll show you pictures of him. He's a massive unit.
Oh yeah, and that goes back to what we were saying before. Like, if you're doing well, and if you're successful, and if you're friends with someone, you generally want to see them do well. And he said, "Hey, like, dude, you're missing out on an opportunity here. Like, you need to do this," and was prepared to disclose his finances with me. And I was like, clearly, you're right. I've missed out. That's why you need good people around you that care about you and will tell you how it is.
I was going to say, he could have lied to you. He could have said, nah, mate, it's a crappy industry and whatever else it is. But instead he's like, hey, jump in, even though you guys are going to be competitors.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I like that. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, he's a genuine good dude. And he's been around the industry for a long time. And he's got a lot of knowledge too. Bit crazy, but he's a good dude.
Oh, you have to be to have those legs. You should see the legs on this bloke. That's how I knew he had some issues. I was like, nobody pushes their legs that hard without having some noise.
His legs he's crazy, absolutely crazy legs.
Yeah. Like if you just saw his upper half, you'd be like, that's a gorilla. But then his legs actually dwarf. And it's not many people I've seen that legs make their upper body look small. Anyway, I'll stop fangirling over at him.
all the listeners will have used personal trainers in gyms over the course of their life. What does it mean to be an online coach? Like from sort of first contact, what does that mean? What do they get in terms of program and support and that sort of thing?
So what's the difference between an online coach versus PT?
Yeah.
I think typically now it might have changed, but back even when I was personal training, you're really just going through a session one-on-one with an individual, like for that session. So if you're going to, you're training chest with them, you're training legs with them, you go through a session. There won't be, oftentimes I would actually write training programs for my clients back then when I was personal training. So they get a training program. Okay, this is what you need to do. But when we're together, we're going to go through and shock the body. We're going to do some crazy stuff. But there was no nutrition application, and there wasn't monitoring and actual check-ins and bumping calories and manipulating things. So an online coach will give you a training program, will have an onboarding process, collect all your information, design a program based on what your goals are. So if your goal is to, lose body fat, to gain a bit of muscle in the right areas, to tone up, whatever it might be. So for me, I look at things from a perspective of what can I do for the client in the timeline that they've signed up for, but it's training nutrition versus PTs mostly don't focus on nutrition. Some probably might do now because they've got to compete with the online space. And if they'll be silly not to offer that as a service right now that it's become more apparent. But if you go do a PT session right now, I'm not too sure what the going rate is, but it could be $80, could be $100 a session, right? Mm. That one session, you could probably pay an online coach, for a weekly price could be $100 a week. So you're going to get training and nutrition, you're going to get accountability, and you're going to be able to be held accountable as well, where you've got to check in and submit your photos, your weight, you're going to be logging all the information. So there's a bit more attention to detail and it's more results focused, whereas a personal trainer is just going to probably smash you in your session. And then outside of the session, there's no accountability. So it's a little bit different.
So, I wouldn't have expected necessarily the accountability part. So, like if I was a client, would I have to be highly self-motivated, or would you be having two-way feedback? And so I'd have to send in photos and stuff. Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I have check-ins, so there's a list of let's say 20 questions, and part of that is, what is your motivation level? What is your training intensity for the week out of 10? Mm-hmm. So if, for example, if someone sends a check-in and they're like 5, and then the motivation might be 5 out of 10. Like, okay, what? So I'll read their check information, look at their photos, look at their scale weight, and I go, okay, scale weight's increased. They've cheated on their diet here. They're not motivated. They're not training hard. Okay, what else is there? Their sleep's not that good. Okay, so let's now talk about what we can do differently for the next week to improve their sleep, to get them motivated. I might give them a spiel about what their goals are, remind them of why they've signed up with me, what we can do together. And you from my perspective, I tell them what they need based on the check-in information they've provided. If someone sends a check-in and like training intensity is a 10, motivated 10, sleep's amazing, it's like, all right, what can I do?
Have a rest day.
You're sweet. You're killing it, So,
but then do they say that? Then you look at the photos and you're like, I don't believe you.
Sometimes I see people say 10, 10. I'm like, come on.
You're like, you're larger than you were last week.
Yeah, give me a 9.9 at least.
Yeah.
Like there's something that can be improved. Give me like a little bit, right? But I understand, and it's also it's really understanding everyone's personalities as well. And sometimes truly in their mind, they're pushing to a 10. They're 10.
Yeah.
So like if their best effort is their best effort, that's all I care about. And everyone has a different level of what they're comfortable to push to. And then perhaps in 6 months' time, they'll reflect and go, Troy, you know what? I actually had this recently. So it's like, I was telling you 10, but really it was about a 7. But that's because I've now elevated and I've expanded beyond what I was thinking previously. So I think that we always expand and we always think about what the next level is. And if you have that mindset, then you'll reflect and go, okay, you know what? I wasn't actually training that hard.
Well, it's also it's an experience. It's like when you do footy or you do soccer or whatever, it's hard at the start. Like especially if you're just starting, things are hard. And you're like, I'm working at a 10. And whereas somebody else will be looking at that going, mate, what? Like you're kidding yourself, but I mean, everybody starts somewhere. And then if you do 6 months later, you're like, geez, I really wasn't working that hard at the start. Well, you were at the time because you were tired, you were unfit, you were overweight, you were doing whatever. And it's like once you've been training for a while, and that's where the discipline comes into it, once you've been doing it for a while, now that you've been disciplined, it's not that hard for you anymore. So now you're like, oh, like getting up in the morning is not hard. Going to the gym, I like it. You know, it's like eating well, I'm seeing difference. So now I like eating that way. And it's these things now start becoming your new normal. So now harder for you is now I can push really hard at the gym. And it's sort of a growth thing where you keep stepping stone, I find, where the more you work towards, and that's where you were saying before with momentum. It's like the more stuff you do, the more stuff you can do.
Oh, absolutely. Everything is about momentum, and you gotta ask yourself some honest questions and have that level of reflection. So self-awareness is incredibly underrated. And I think if you're critiquing yourself in a positive way about, you know, what was the opportunity that I missed today? You know, it could be even in the gym. Like, was there something that I could improve on? I'm like, I was on my phone for too long. I was resting a little bit too long in between sets. I chatted to that crazy old guy that does the lat pull downs like a chimpanzee, you know, whatever it might be. So you've got to assess what you're doing, review and go, okay, what can I do better? Not negative self-talk, but what can I do better for tomorrow or the next week? And if you focus on these micro improvements, you're going to build momentum, and then eventually you're going to be a savage. And next thing you know, you're going to be Frank the Tank.
In a good way.
Does that mean, you know, you hear these things, you should only say compare yourself to who you were yesterday? Is that what you're saying, or is that too neutral? Do you actually need to be setting your sights higher to have other people that you're looking up to?
I think it's both. It's also depending on who you are and like what you respond to. So not everyone's going to respond to, you know, the same communication, the same dialogue. You know, there are people out there that will be inspired by, like, let's say ladies on Instagram and go, you know, I really admire this athlete. I got to look at all their content. Because I watch her do her routine on Instagram stories or whatever it might be, I'm then now inspired to take action and cook the same and put as much time and attention to meal prep. Then you have others like me. I'm not going to care about that. You know, so you got to find out what motivates you and what inspires you and then go with that. But I do think it's important to be honest with yourself. And if you're critiquing yourself in a way where you're focusing on what you can do better, I think that's the healthiest way to do it versus focusing on what other people are doing. It's very easy to go, what is this athlete doing? Oh, but I'm not good enough because this person's got big glutes, or this person's got this lifting really heavy. I'm not capable of that. I'm nowhere near that yet. But you don't know what their journey is like. So why are you comparing yourself to this person for? And it's the same thing from a business perspective as well. It's like you will see someone, you know, driving a nice car, wearing a nice watch, having a nice house, living a great lifestyle, but you haven't seen them grind and what they needed to do to get there to that position. But you'll see a good physique straight away. Go, wow, that's, you know, that dude's got an impressive physique, you know, nice and lean, or you know, that woman's got an impressive physique. Again, you're just looking at the end result, but you don't know what the journey looked like, and everyone's journey is different.
So how did you go from online coaching to now starting your own app? Is your app live now? How long has that been on for?
No, so I had a few interesting. So the short version of that is that app was being developed. There was a few problems with the logistics of it and the implementation of my vision. That app company went into liquidation. So
is this the one you were talking about in Thailand?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now so went through that process, went through essentially I didn't know they were, at that point in time, I didn't know they were in liquidation, right? I've now found out that
so they were already in liquidation when you started?
No, they weren't. No.
Oh, okay.
So they progressed to that point. So I was having issues that I said to you in Thailand. We had that discussion. And yeah, later on, you know, you go to the ACCC, you go through this process, and then you're like, yo. And then I can't say that on air. This is something I can't
NDA?
say.
Yeah. All good.
But yeah, you find out that there's nothing you can do. And it's like, all right, cool. I need to start fresh. So I've got a new company now that I'm working with, and I believe that I found the right company to help execute the vision. But I was saying off air, there's a lot of lessons. It's like, it's very easy to get caught up into saying, oh shit, woe is me. You know, like I lost 6 figures on that. You know, it's a lot of money. And for a lot of people, they'll be like, fuck, I'm going to quit now. But instead of having that attitude and going, fuck, woe is me, oh shit, liquidation, fuck, not only just the financial investment, but also the time investment. Now there's like, is it fear of failure that's creeping in? Is it going to work? You know, how am I going to find? There's so many things I could tell myself to talk myself out of finding another app company, right? Is it going to work? How am I going to find someone that I can trust? All this shit. Fuck that. Like the idea that I had in my head was like, it's so concrete. I know wholeheartedly with 100% certainty it's going to work. It's just about finding the right person. And if I spend a bit of money, obviously it's a good amount of money. If I spend a bit of money, I didn't waste it. I spent it. It was an investment. So I don't think of it from the perspective of I lost that money. No, I invested that money to put me on this journey to now find the right company that is going to take my vision to public, essentially. So it's not, everything's based on perception. Like, am I a victim of liquidation, or am I inspired? Did it put me on the right path? What are the lessons? So that's the way I look at it.
So you would have learned obviously what to look out for, so that wasn't going to happen again. So that would have been a lesson learned that way. But how do you get to the mindset of you've lost all that much? Because I mean, Grant Cardone cost you $1,500, and now we're talking six figures you've lost here. Mm-hmm. And instead of tapping out, you've decided to double down and go again elsewhere. Where do you get that belief? Did that start with Tony? Did that start before then? Because a lot of people here would have thought $1,500 in Grant Cardone is too much of a risk to take.
Yeah, and then we go to the app. So a little bit different. So I think that first of all, certainty and confidence comes from putting the work in. So because I put so much work in my ability, let's say, to establish myself as an authority in this space, and because I have the knowledge and I have a clear vision and I know exactly what I want to bring in terms of the app, it's like there's nothing that can fuck with me to take me away from what I believe. Like, because I know with every ounce of my being that this is going to be a killer of an app. So it's like, if there's a roadblock, so what? There's nothing that can change my mind, because I've made up my mind. I know it's going to work because currently what I'm doing is working. And, if what I'm doing is working on a small level, when I scale it, it's game over. So I never crept in my mind that it was not possible. The only thing that crept in my mind, truthfully, was how am I going to find the right people to get this vision to market? That was my concern.
When do you reckon that snap happened? Do you reckon it was the Grant Cardone thing that you invested in?
No, not
before
at all.
Then?
No, that was way too early. So the Grant Cardone stuff, I mean, it was more than I was in the quest for knowledge.
Yeah,
I didn't have this grand idea of I'm going to do something amazing. I always wanted to work for myself and to do something really cool, but that was just part of the journey. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted then. So in terms of where did I get the app concept from?
No, where did you get the belief that even though you've lost 6 figures on an investment, that you're like, that was a lesson learned? Because a lot of people will be like, shit, that's me done. I'm not gambling again. I can't afford to lose that much, et cetera, et cetera. They're like all that stuff you're saying that was creeping in. You're just like, did I get hustled? Was I not smart enough? Is the app not going to work? Is this a sign saying I shouldn't be doing it? Is this like all the negative self-talk that can come into that? But you were just like, you know what? No, fuck that. I'm going to do it again. I believe in it. It's just a shit situation, but I've learned from it and I'm going to go forward. But like at some point, was there just like an aha moment where you're like, hey, you know what? What's the worst going to happen? Or is it like we've found with most other people, it's like every little lesson that you've learned along the way has got you to a point now where you're like, no, this is going to work because everything else I've done's worked because I know I can put in the work. Well, see,
I've got an advantage. It's like everything's perception related. I've got an advantage because I know what the worst case scenario looks like.
Because you've already just done that.
You know what I mean? So I already know what the worst case scenario is where, oh shit, I lost a lot of money and I don't want to say wasted time because that's not true, but I spent a lot of time on this project with the wrong people sharing the vision. So it was different allocation of time. But I know what the worst case scenario is, and was it that bad for me? Like, it can be if you look at it that way. But for me, I don't look at it. I think that this little setback is going to be worth it when the vision's taken to market. So from my perspective, I don't see it as a negative, and I never had that doubt creep in. I'm like, I know what the worst case scenario is. Like, what worse can happen again? Like, well, that same process, like it could, but I don't think so because I've done my due diligence in terms of the current app company. They've produced other really good apps that are high level that are in this space as well. So they have the experience, they have that credibility. So I definitely think I found the right people as well.
I think it's good too that you know, it can take people a long time to zoom out and have that retrospective view on it too. Like, I've lost significant money in a business years ago, and that sort of scorned me for many years. Took a long time to get over it. But then you can also realize, well, that money was an investment in education on what not to do, but there's always pros in any business as well that you can pick up.
Yeah. Look, that's the thing is you've got to take the losses as well as the wins. And from what, in this space that I'm in, I've had a lot of wins. And I think that part of the process, you can't always win. It's like you want to. Everyone loves a winner. And like who doesn't want to make money and to provide value and to be appreciated as well in a space that you're working in and to be an authority? Like everyone wants that. But it's not always going to be positive. And that's what I realize as well. And I'm fine with that. And it's like I said, like, am I fine with the worst case scenario? Yes, because I've been there before and I know what it looks like. And it's like, yeah, it's not that hurtful. It's more a little bit disappointing, but I'm more excited about the opportunity to get this done because I know it's going to work.
The other thing that, you said before, just to hone in on it, is that you've done the work. So it seems like there's no doubt. And there's a saying, you can outwork your disbelief. You've just created the credibility and the belief that you have the system, and now you're formalizing it in an app.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like I said, I want to probably rehash what I said. Like confidence comes from putting the work in. So you are going to become very, very confident once you've studied, your field, once you've done it like a market research, when you've assessed what else is out there, and when you have the knowledge. And if you don't have the knowledge, you can invest in other people that do, and you can find a mentor, you can educate yourself, you can do a course, you can watch what your competitors are doing on Instagram. So if you're in a particular space, what are my competitors doing? What can I learn from them? What don't I like what they're doing? In terms of their marketing or their branding, there's always something that you can do and you want to have your spin on things. So there's always something to learn. And I think that is probably the number one thing. It's like, yes, confidence comes from putting the work in, and there's always lessons, and it's all perception based.
Are you chasing any other online people, like evidence-based training, like with spin kicks? Because you could probably spin kick.
I can spin kick, yeah. So he's actually what I like about him is that he's got a scalable method. I think that he's done a really good job. Like his choice of language and all that doesn't resonate with me, but it resonates with the particular demographic. So
I've got one of his hoodies.
So there you go. There you go. Your
language resonates with somebody.
So you know what? That episode 50 podcast is brought to you by
evidence-based training. Yeah.
And I'm taking me to the stage.
Yeah.
True. Now you're going to be competing. So board shorts.
Oh yeah, we're fighting. No, we're not fighting.
He
can actually
now
fight.
You're on to a fight. So
fight or physique?
Yeah, fight or physique. I mean, look, I would say that entering into a physique competition would be much easier than fighting. I would advise that's for sure. Because
I know what I would rather see though.
It's very much easier to pose on stage than it is to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And anyone says otherwise is
it's not that much work getting punched in the face. You just stand there, but to actually be able to defend yourself.
Look, if you keep your hands up, you're probably going to get dropped by a body shot. And that's still not fun either.
Mate, the leg kick thing is legitimately the biggest thing I'm scared of. Snap my leg in half.
Look, I'd say it's unlikely that your leg would get snapped in half from taking a good kick, but one good kick, I would look. It's very likely you'd cop one really hard leg kick and you would stay standing.
Yeah.
But my advice to you would be to fall over. Because then you're not going to get number two.
Yeah.
Because number two would confirm that you're not walking for at least a week.
Yeah.
So just take the first one and go, it's going to hurt, but don't be tough.
Yeah.
Just fall over.
Just do it for the viewers, person.
Yeah. And then, so the app's in, how long before you reckon the app's going to be done?
Should be 6 months.
Cool.
Yeah, 6 months away.
And this is a terrible segue, but moving to Dubai, because I want to talk about Dubai.
Yeah.
How do you decide, A, where you're going, B, picking up your whole life and moving there? You've got no friends, family over there, no support network. Like, again, this is just another thing that a lot of people would just be like, that's crazy, I'm never doing that.
Yeah.
Like, what's your mindset on just going, no, I'm going to Dubai and I'm going to live it up?
So everything goes back to, like, what is the purpose? Like, what is your goal? So for me, it's like, all right, I have an opportunity, because Dubai, for everyone that's listening, is tax-free. You got to pay 5% VAT depending on the business that you have. So VAT is like a GST. So think of it as, well, obviously got 10% GST in Australia, 5% VAT in the UAE or Dubai. So I was like, all right, I need to investigate this and look into it to see if it was actually real. And obviously come to the conclusion that it's actually legit. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
Mate, 10% of GST is the least of our dramas
Yeah.
on tax in Australia.
Exactly. So you've got you've got a high tax threshold and you're saving a lot of money. So like, all right, I want to challenge myself and to do something, step outside my comfort zone. So one thing that I haven't spoken about on this pod yet is I see a clinical psychologist, and we've had chats about this, I think. And that was probably, if we're talking about investment, Grant Cardone was good. That started the journey, but the best investment that I ever made in myself was seeing a clinical psych. And I really undervalued and underestimated how significant the impact would be. And impact is the right word. It's incredibly impactful. And through that process, I developed self-esteem, like high level self-esteem, because I had very shit self-esteem, by the way. So very low self-esteem, needing validation, very insecure. And that used to be me. That's why I started. Like first thing that I did was when I go to the gym, my thought was, I want to have females' attention. Like I need validation. Like that's how insecure I was. Like I needed that attention. It's like, why do you need attention for? So I needed that. And I was like, cool. That was the process. But seeing a clinical psychologist was the best investment. And through that process, develop self-esteem, develop confidence, and change my internal processes in terms of how I view the world and how I perceive the world, and my ideology change, also my value system. Through that process, I became a person that would never be able to travel anywhere solo, to be able to have the confidence and to be completely happy in my own company, not needing to be social, because I like to have conversations, be a social person. But through that process, I didn't need that. I became my own best friend because I practiced self-love. And because of that, I was like, yeah, I could take action and go overseas. If I didn't see a psych, I wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been too tough for me mentally to be away from friends and family and to have no one there, because of the time zone, depending on if it's daylight saving, 6 to 7 hours behind. So, when at nighttime you're by yourself, there's a certain part where there's no communication with anyone else. And I moved there not knowing anyone, but the decision was made because of the financial gain. And I also wanted to challenge myself to see what it would be like to live in a completely different country, not know anything, and just and to learn and to grow in that experience. Because I think life's all about expansion. And if we're not prepared to do things different and challenge ourselves, step outside our comfort zone, are we really growing as an individual? No. Like I grew so much. It's hard to say, like so short of seeing a clinical psych, that process, I grew a tremendous amount. Outside of that, I would say I grew probably the most from moving to Dubai, because you find out a lot about yourself when you're by yourself, when you're alone with your own thoughts and you don't have someone to rely on. You've got to rely on yourself. There's no, hey, I can call someone, for a chat. It's like you can make friends, but then what are the quality of those friendships over there? That's another discussion. But it was just more for me. I wanted to challenge myself, step outside my comfort zone. And when I was there, I really enjoyed it. Like just now I've got friends there. It's a little bit different. I put myself in that position, but I demanded more of myself. I wanted to challenge myself, and I thought I'm also going to be saving a lot more money, and potentially, spending some money over there as well, which I have. I've really enjoyed my time over there. But I think, there's a few factors that contributed to the idea of Dubai.
You were saying not many Australians have actually moved there. In Australia, a lot of people have moved to Queensland over the last few years. So what have you seen any trends? Are more Australians going over there? What's sort of the world trend, or maybe the Southern Hemisphere trend that you've seen in terms of tax minimisation and lifestyle changes? Yeah,
I think when the whole COVID thing happened, I did notice that a lot of Victorians were, wanting to move to the Gold Coast, and then to even be able to rent up there and to buy, the prices went through the roof. And I was like, I actually thought about it too, to be honest. I was like, Gold Coast seems nice. If going to get locked down and the potential of further lockdowns, at least I can go for a walk and be in the sun. That sounds nice. So that's what I was thinking too. So I completely understand that side of things, though there's not really any benefits in tax. It's the same thing. So you're not really getting any incentive outside of the sun and nice weather. Of course, that's great. And I value that as well. So that's definitely important to me. But the whole concept of Dubai, I think it's going to become more popular, but exactly the reasons why, like in the question you brought up with, being away from friends and family, that's going to be a roadblock for a lot of people moving over there. They'll go, I like the tax. I've got my own business. Can I move my business there? That's another thing. I'm online. It's a little bit different. But can you move your business there? But can you operate on a level where you're okay with being away from family and friends? And some people can't do that. It's challenging. So you got to have your mind right to be able to do that, to be in that position, to take advantage of the tax benefits over there. And it's not easy. Some people try. I mean, people go overseas for a month and they get homesick. That happens a lot. They go to Europe. I'm having a great time. At the end of their trip, they start getting like, a little bit maybe anxiety. They get a little bit, oh damn, like I'm homesick. So that's on a trip where you're spending a lot of money, you're enjoying yourself, you're probably partying. But what about every day, like a day-to-day life where you've got your routine, you go to the gym, you're doing boring things, you got to be disciplined. It's like you can't even handle a trip in Europe when you're partying away from your family. After the 6th week, you're ready to come home. So day-to-day life is a lot more challenging. So you're probably going to struggle if you want to move to Dubai. So I think that probably puts people off as well.
Yeah, like if you're the person that goes on a holiday and they're like, oh, I can't wait to get home, that's probably a heads up. Unless you've been drunk for 3 weeks straight and your liver's screaming.
If you're really hitting it hard, you're probably not going to feel good no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's a good point, because some people crave also routine, because like if you're working really hard, and a lot of people do, like you got 9-to-5 jobs, like any job that I truly believe, like you're selling yourself. You're a prostitute for time. Right? Like you want the money, right? There's an exchange of value, and you're trading time for money, and you're working hard during the week. If it's 9 to 5 or whatever it is, you're doing 40 or 50 hours, 60 hours, whatever it is, you're going overseas to have a good time. You want to let loose. You want to just chill out, enjoy yourself. Sometimes you might be 2 or 3 weeks into the holiday going, you know what, I've had so much fun. I've drank so much. I just want routine. And a lot of the time that happens as well.
Mm. You said earlier about 80% of people in Dubai were expats.
Yeah.
Where are they from? What's the makeup there?
There's definitely a lot from the UK. There's definitely a lot of Russians there as well, and just Eastern European. So a lot of Ukraine, a lot of Russians, I would say. So are
they getting along over there? They get along over there.
Well, ignore what's going on back home. Sometimes I troll. I used to troll and be like, you can almost. When I moved there originally, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like you look at someone and you go, Eastern Europe, like no, you're not sure where exactly.
Yeah.
But I would look at ladies now, and I could just tell, like, I'm like, you're Ukrainian, right? But I would purposely just troll her, just have a laugh. So like, do you speak Russian? And then just be like, But some of them are actually pretty cool, where they're just like, it's not we as people, as civilians, like we're not against each other. It's our government that's
I was going to say
so.
That.
They're pretty cool. Like I think most of the time people are understanding, and a lot of Russians are very sympathetic of Ukrainians, and they don't like what's going on. So
and a lot of Ukrainians hate their government and think they're shady as well. So it's
I mean, look,
it's interesting.
What country actually appreciates their government outside the UAE? Like realistically, like if you go, for example, good luck for the Prime Minister going to the local shopping centre. Probably going to get egg in his face somehow. Someone's going to do it, right? Or at least they're going to think about it. There's security everywhere. If you go to the UAE, the sheikh can walk without security. He's welcomed. He's like, people pray for him, and he's highly respected, which I like the idea of. It's like there's that level of respect and appreciation for your leader where they've literally got monuments everywhere. So you have like just regular civilians will have like a frame on the wall of the leader. That's not going to happen in Australia.
And not by fear.
Yeah, not enforced
it's
like Thailand and stuff.
It's for genuine love. And if you think of it and go, why is that? And like, what do they do? What does the leader in Dubai do for them? Like for their people? There's so many incentives. Like it's crazy what they do. Like they get mortgages. Like if you're a local and you're born there, you're an Emirati. There's no such thing as a mortgage. Like in terms of 4%, 5%. There's so many incentives. They get, if you don't have a job, there's like the dole on steroids. They get looked after. So of course you're going to love your leader, and the infrastructure, the economy's booming. I mean, the healthcare system there is very good. So they're first in AI technology as well. They've got like an AI minister. They're ahead of the game. They're actually thinking, about expansion of the country, and it's hard not to like it, because at first when I went there, I was like, the leaders everywhere. That's what I thought to myself. I'm like, they've got the sheikh monuments there, and they're like photos and frames. Like you go to, let's say you go to a dentist, there's a frame on the wall. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go to the hairdresser, and you're like, like the barbers, and you're like, there's on the wall. All right, cool. But you don't know, like, is it by fear?
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
at all. It's by love.
Yeah.
And
well, they are doing other crazy stuff too. Like they're literally turning the desert into agricultural land because they're like, we don't know, we need to be able to be self-sustaining and stuff.
Well, they do also. They're cheeky with the cloud seeding. You see the recent stuff.
Very cheeky.
Yeah. But I told people this before. I said, listen, in Dubai, they manipulate the weather.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the floods start. I'm like, yo, I'm not just talking shit.
Yeah.
This is actually what happens is the UAE is ahead of the game. Of course, like it's literally in the desert. How do you think we're going to...
Yeah. Seeding's been around since I think the 70s or something.
Yeah.
It was ages ago they started that. But yeah.
Absolutely. This is I would say not so common for the everyday person, but that's because the everyday person is too busy being programmed by the globalists.
So
up
when
next,
you're,
Andrew Tate.
Yeah. I mean, when you're
Matrix is
traveling and backpacking, you can make friends quite easily because everybody's in the same circumstance. Has that been your experience moving to Dubai? Like, there's a lot of like-minded people that are new and making new circles of friends?
I think it's challenging to connect with people through an authentic experience because it's very rare that two people want the same thing. I think. I think courtesy and respect goes a long way. I think most people look. The UAE's got a very low crime rate. That's really something that's nice. Like you can walk the street. A female can walk the street 9-10 o'clock at night, walk home at the middle of the night. It's very, very incredibly unlikely that she's going to be harassed. It'd be almost unheard of. Like so, whereas you couldn't do that in Australia.
Pickpockets and stuff?
What was that?
Like pickpockets and that sort of stuff.
No,
not a thing either.
Not at all.
Homeless?
Like, there's so many examples of like I personally haven't done this, but in Dubai, a lot of people have money, so they'll put they'll just leave their like designer handbags like on a park bench, walk around, and they'll be back half an hour later.
Is there much homeless and stuff over there?
No, there's none. The homeless, no, they look after their own. That's what I'm saying. Like they love the leader because it's impossible to be homeless over there. It just doesn't happen. There's something going on in Australia. We know what they're doing with the tax dollars. So you have the UAE. This is why when I went there, it opened my mind. I'm like, how is it possible that there's a 5% VAT? The infrastructure is amazing. The streets are clean. The crime rate's pretty much, well, it's not zero, but it'll be as close to zero as possible. Like no one's contributing significantly in tax. It's like, I don't understand how this is possible. And I questioned that for a long time. I'm like, am I missing something? I'm like, what is going on here? And then it was interesting when I did also travel to Romania. That opened my eyes as well, that particular trip. And this is why it's so important to travel. If you've got the money, travel. Like if you've got the money, travel where you can and learn something from each different country. It's not just about the culture and experience and the history, but you pick up on things. And going to the UAE definitely opened my mind, but it's not the most cheapest place. But going to Romania was really cool where I wish I didn't take photos. I was so mind blown. A lot of the time I'm not thinking, social media, or I need to capture this content. I'm just present in the moment. That's what I try to do. And I remember when I went to like a supermarket in Romania and the price of chicken breast was so ridiculously cheap. And I was just looking at it going, how is it so cheap? I'm calculating to make sure that it's correct in my mind. I'm like, that makes no sense. And I would go to go to a breakfast place and I'd order a breakfast and I'm like, I look at the prices. I'm like, surely, and I'm like putting it on my calculator. I'm like, how is this so ridiculously cheap? How is this possible? I'm like, inflation's a scam. This is, I'm sitting there thinking inflation is a scam. How is it possible that it's so damn cheap in Romania and they remove themselves from, they've got their own currency.
Oh, yep.
And it was interesting. What did I do? I did a tour to Dracula's castle, I think it was. And it was it was more than 4 hours a road trip. And I had this driver and we're talking about like the economics of the economy. And I was talking about exactly that experience. I go, it's cheap. And he goes, it never used to be. He said, when we adopted the euro, everything was 3 times more expensive. And the country fought back and now we've gone back to the lira. I thought, how interesting. I go, all that changed was the currency. He goes, yes. And I was like, And that just started, I collected that information. I didn't really understand it at the time, but it started the process of me thinking that some shit going on.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of general conclusion as to why Dubai and Romania are self-sustainable and can fund themselves so efficiently?
It's interesting because it has to reflect leadership. It has to, because what else would it be? For example, if the crime rate's really low in the UAE, surely that's because there is a fear of punishment that exceeds the probability of, okay, am I willing to go to jail for 5 years for, let's say, smoking weed? Like, I don't smoke weed, but as an example, probably not. If you do it in Australia, it's like, hey, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's probably not going to happen. It might be a slap on the wrist in comparison. So I think the consequence of getting locked up, or the fear of that, or the fear of violence, is a lot higher. So you're not going to F with it. And clearly it's the same thing from the economy. They've clearly got their processes in place to look after their people. And I think that because it's not a democracy, people are, democracy, it's going to be a dictatorship. But clearly their leader is loved. He's not feared. So they're doing something right over there. They're looking after the people. And it must be similar in Romania. I'm sure that, like, not every system's perfect, but clearly there's something going on that I think that the Western world can learn from, because it's not just the UAE, but Saudi Arabia is starting to follow as well. There's a lot of investments, a lot of money getting dumped in there apart from their oil, where now they're westernizing it, and they're seeing what the UAE has done. They're seeing what Dubai has done. And now it's going to be Saudi versus the UAE in terms of competition. Like, who can get to the peak of, who can be the king of the Middle East? That would be the first step. But then it's like, who can be the king of the world? So eventually they're going to want to go down that road.
It's funny because we were like, Australia's so well off with natural resources as well. We could theoretically be in the same position, but we just sold all our gas off ages ago.
You said Dubai doesn't benefit from the oil money as well, so that's even more. I would have assumed they were.
Yeah, so Abu Dhabi is rich in oil, but nothing like Saudi. Saudi dominates the oil game in the Middle East. So it's that's why the Dubai leader seen that the economy needed something, and that's why he's had this vision to create, like, to have all these foreigners to come in to create the incentives, obviously. So people are spending money in the UAE because they're moving there, and it's 80%, are foreigners. So he's had the vision, and he's gone, we need to boost the tourism here. We're going to do some really cool things, and he's just executed it flawlessly, really. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like in 5-10 years' time. I mean, some of the infrastructure that they've got there is crazy. Like, they've got like the best hotel in the world in Dubai. It's crazy. Like, it's the most amazing hotel you ever go to. You go to the foyer and you're just like, I'm just going to order a cup of tea. Just chill.
Just to see.
And just dipping in and chilling. You get all these people in here, and you're like, damn, like, everyone's dressed so nicely. And it's just cool just to chill in that foyer, and you get the fountain popping off. You've got a fountain show every half hour. And you're like, wow, like, the vision that this guy had, like, just to be able to have all this infrastructure, to have all these big name companies to come in and to invest and to build, it's crazy.
Are the nice places affordable? And maybe not that hotel, but, to go out for a nice dinner, are you spending a lot of money, or are they reasonably priced?
I think now it's probably a little bit more expensive than Melbourne in terms of going out to dinner. But look, I'm not going to lie, I'm a big foodie, so I tend to spend a bit of money. Like, now I don't drink so much alcohol, so I'm saving the money in the alcohol. But for food, yeah, I'm Mr. All-you-can-eat without actually going to an all-you-can-eat restaurant. I'm like, yes, get all that.
Order all of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. I do enjoy it. So, but it is a bit more expensive, but then you look at it and go, okay, they're obviously able to charge a premium because, number one, the UAE they're not collecting tax. Mm-hmm. So the people that are living in the UAE have more to spend. Yeah. So it makes sense that the restaurants are a bit more expensive. However, I also want to say that the service there is impeccable. So it's interesting going to, you could go to any restaurant in Dubai and get an incredible experience where the customer service is just 10 out of 10. And every restaurant, because you go to one restaurant that's like that, they've all got to compete with each other. So every restaurant that you go to is just spectacular in service because they have to be at that standard. And the same thing with the food. So we talked about Michelin star restaurants off air, and they've got so many Michelin star restaurants. And the ones that aren't, they're on the Michelin guide, but they're all competing for that standard. You go to a restaurant in Melbourne, sure, there's good food. Everyone's like, oh, Melbourne's got the best food in the world. No way. Like, it's good.
It's just a slogan.
To Dubai, yo. Like, I didn't realize. I was so proud. I'm like, yes, I was one of those dickheads. Melbourne's better than Sydney. Yes. I was like so proud of that, just see from Sydney, or Melbourne's better. No, Sydney's better. Yeah. It's like, yo, Dubai is better. Sorry, guys.
Is tipping part of the service culture there, or is it just
that's the
customary?
Coolest thing. I don't like that about the States. So, went to Vegas. When did I go to Vegas? last August. Did I go? I think it was just last year, August. And I go there somewhat regularly every couple of years. And you go to a restaurant and the service is average and you're still obligated to tip. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very odd thing.
I didn't mind it years ago, but service I think in Australia now is terrible. But at least if you are tipping well, you generally do get good service.
I like the option to tip.
Yeah,
I think that's what I like. So if someone does a good job in Australia, if I'm at a restaurant and I'm really satisfied, I'll tip for sure. Yeah. I'll leave a tip, absolutely. And in Dubai, it's like they're prepared to go to the next level with their service, and there's no tip. Like they don't ask for it, and I think now they've got the thing on the FPOS machine actually, like, do you want to add a tip? Like I think that's been implemented now everywhere. But their service is that incredible. I'm just like, yo, I get better service in Dubai where there's no incentive for a tip. You go to the USA, you go to Vegas, which is Vegas, right? And they're like, you're obligated to tip. It's part of the bill. It's like, and the service sucks compared to the people in Dubai. It's like, come on, yo. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Dubai from so many different perspectives. So it's like, what is Dubai weakness? Probably there's no greenery. They need to have mountains.
Don't they have like skiing resorts or something inside a massive building anyway?
You can't have if you're going to have a pug walking around, it's probably not going to be a healthy one. You know? Probably can't breathe in the desert.
Like parks and things like that in the built up areas?
Yeah, there is some, they've had like design and infrastructure. It's just not the same. So they do have their version of mountains, but it's not anywhere near let's call it the CBD or the metro area. You've got to travel to go to the mountains. So that's probably one thing that I missed out on when over there is the greenery. Like you do really appreciate that being in Australia for sure, or anywhere else for that matter. But they just don't have that.
Cool.
Might have to see for ourselves one day, mate.
So where can people get you at the moment for like coaching and that sort of stuff?
Instagram is definitely the best way to get me. It's at Troy J Thornton. So Instagram is the social media everyone knows is the best thing for business.
Yeah,
best thing for business, brand awareness, creating a brand, even for the pod, you guys.
Yeah, we're a pretty big deal. So you've made it. That's how you know when you get on our podcast.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thank you very much for having us. We'll probably ring you in for Potapalooza 2, which is episode 20 if we get there. So make sure you stand by your phone. I know you'll be waiting patiently to get back on with us.
I will be.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
All right, cheers.
That's been fun.
Cheers,
thanks
guys.
Thanks for stopping by, mate.
Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.